All of my children are really good at mathematics. Really good. They don't know why that's important to them. They just know that it is. And they figured out, because over our dinner tables when they're 3, I would be giving them little maths quizzes and stuff. Yeah, the frog jumps in a well and jumps 3 and it falls back 2. How many days to get out? You know, cute little things and tricky things. And so somehow they would figure that, and they figure eventually that if, you know, maths is so important that they could only be one of us and sleep at home sort of thing if they are good at maths. And they are therefore, they become good at maths. It's a non-negotiable. Now, heaven forbid one of my kids couldn't make it in maths. They would almost become an instant D. Because they would assume they were unlovable. Because their parents couldn't love them, could they? Because they only loved the ones who were good at maths. Now, this is how superficial it can be. But if there are, now each of us have non-negotiables. If I asked you and pinned you down, you'd say, my parents would not really love me anymore if I went around beating up little old ladies. You know, taking their walking sticks and beating them to a pulp. They would somehow disown me. They would no longer continue to love me. So there's going to be some non-negotiables in everybody's family. But outside of those, the theory will say that we work really, really hard to get recognition in our families. That's why you didn't go into the same area, or they didn't go in the same area as you. It's not an accident. You know, theoretically, the best predictor of having a degree is socioeconomic status, parents' income and all that sort of stuff, postcode. Well, you both live in the same area. You're both from the same family. And yet, it's not a good predictor in this room. The better predictor would be whether you're first or second born, normally. But certainly, who knows that they... I'll give you another simple test. I'm going to ask you a simple question. I'm not going to define anything. I'm just going to say, how similar are you to your sibling? You're either going to be very much like them, not like them, or very much not like them. That's easy. Okay, who's very much like their sibling? Raise your hand. Only 1 and 2s, only 1 and 2s. No, forget the 3s. 1 and 2s. No, by the way, if the 3s are the last, they should be cool with everything. It's not a problem. 1 and 2s. Who's very much like their sibling? Almost nobody. Who's like their sibling? About... Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people. Who is not like their sibling? A stack of you. Okay, let's say a lot. I'll say who is very much not like their sibling? The remainder of you, right. Okay, so in other words, it's all here. And that's the theory. So when you hear a TV program that says, how can the children be so different? They're raised in the same family. You should ring up the people who have made that program and say, you are idiots. You have no idea of family dynamics. This person is raised in a house with that person, but this person is raised in a house with that person. They're not raised in the same setting. That's why you'll get the extroverted twin and the introvert. Who's a twin? Now, are you a first and second?
Yeah. No.
Okay. Well, that'll still be useful. It might work. Are you very much like your twin? No. In what ways? Could you publicly say in any way?
Well, it describes the good twin and the bad.
Okay, that does it. Now, let me guess.
I'm not saying you're trying to...
No, but let me guess. The good twin was born 3.5 minutes earlier?
No.
Later? Oh, that's really bad, because that means... No, that makes it really hard for the other one, because that's like when the second born overtakes the first. That's really difficult. Okay, so normally, and so you'll find that the better one is, in any of these combinations, the more difficult it is for the other one. That's the problem. That's the problem. So if you have a first child and you put a lot of love and attention and energy, called parental capital, into that child, that child will develop, because they do. And they'll develop the parts of their brain that will support that, so they'll become usually very good at reading, writing and arithmetic. And if the second one doesn't sense they can overtake that, they will move away from certain areas depending on the strengths of the first one, not consciously. They're not aware of this. And they will move in another area where they can gain status and recognition in their family. They work very hard at it. So if the first one seems so good, that could be a problem, because then the second one will be so bad. And that can happen at times. It's not common, because there's usually enough room for people to manoeuvre and get some recognition. So if you read, who were those famous twins I read recently? Two males, about 30, probably 33. Anyhow, one's a very famous guy on TV, and the other one, he was the one who was drunk, and he was walking on the road and he got hit by a car because he was drunk at the time, and he's in a wheelchair. And you'll read these things every weekend in these magazines. You'll read about the one who is dysfunctional in some form or other. And it's usually the second one. Usually. Not always, usually. Because the first one gets first go. Now, they can carve out a territory. So, why am I doing all this? Because it's highly relevant, I think, but I'm going to find out, to kids who have a low sense of self-worth. They're the sibling who came off worst. Okay? And this is a theory which talks about birth order, and it talks about reasons for misbehaviour, and it does not mean the person understands anything about this at all. And that's the problem. They have no insight. If they had insight, they could respond differently. They would have a choice. But without insight, they have no choice. They respond almost instinctively. So the second born doesn't know why he goes and gets in trouble with the law. They don't know why they're attracted to this stuff. They haven't figured out that the first one's the goodie, so they've got to be the baddie. They know nothing about what they're doing. So one of the things here which is really dicey, and I have a lot of trouble talking about this, is that technically it's none of your business, but it becomes your business because of the way they act. And what you do about it is really interesting. I'm not quite sure how far to go with this, because psychs would say you have no right to tamper in this area. Others, like me, would say, well, if you don't, no one's going to, including the psychs. They might put a label on a kid, but it doesn't help a lot. They're not necessarily going to tell you what to do with that kid that's going to be highly productive. So the more psychometric they are, the worse it gets. If they're sort of